Welcome to the Backup Wrap-Up, your go-to podcast for all things backup, recovery, and cyber recovery. In this latest episode of our series on ransomware, we're tackling a critical aspect of cybersecurity, the IT Security Audit. We'll explore why they are essential, what they entail, and the things that you could implement in your environment to actually do well in such an audit. We talk about user education, application whitelisting, a whole bunch of other things, key elements that make up a comprehensive IT security strategy. Stick around as we unpack the ins and outs of IT security audits and equip you with the knowledge that you need. If you are not familiar with me, I am W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. Well, not the podcast, of course, but backups. Ever since I had to tell my boss that we had no backups of a production database that we had lost, I got this passion. I don't want that to happen to you, and that's why I do things like this. On this podcast, we turn unappreciated backup admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap-Up. Welcome to the show. Before we continue, can I ask you to click the subscribe or follow button so that you'll always get our great content? Thanks. Hi, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and with me as always is my secret assistant conspirer, Prasanna Malaiyandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
I'm doing well, Curtis. Yeah, so what can I assist with?
No, you're conspiring with me regarding my secret assistant.
Oh, yes. Well, I am assisting with your secret assistant. Yes.
Yeah.
How
did you know that he was secret? Did you know that I haven't told my wife?
Oh, jeez. Don't put me in that spot. Because you know that if
I haven't told my wife that I have a Guy Friday.
It could just say that it's the Easter Bunny came over and everything went poof and cleaned itself up.
It's just somehow magically I got a lot more done around the house than I would normally get done.
Yeah, or it could be like those 1-800 junk commercials. You point, we take it away. We make it disappear.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, I've hired a guy who's helping me get some stuff done around the house because I just can't get it all done. Because you know me, I'm a very I like to do things myself.
Yeah, that's why I was very surprised.
But I just, I've been so busy with, with the new job and the podcast and all the stuff that I've been doing to make the podcast, to grow the podcast and all that stuff. And so
it's just excuses,
stuff just building up.
Well, I think it's also excuses because if it was something you enjoy doing, you would go do it immediately.
I would find time.
Yes, but because this is cleaning stuff up and other tasks which are low on your priority list and don't bring you joy.
They don't bring me joy.
Yeah.
The result brings me joy, but the actual activity does not bring me joy. So,
it's like me and the last 4 weeks I've been weeding outside, and although it's not awful, it's very calming.
How weeding can take you 4 weeks.
Well, I do little bits at a time. I'm out there for I'm sitting there picking each individual weed, Curtis.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. You need to get a guy. You need to get a weed guy.
Yeah, my wife tells me we should get a person to clean. I'm like, it's okay. It gets me out in the sun. And now, last weekend, we sat outside, enjoyed the backyard, because then you enjoy it even more because you did it.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about nothing like that. This week, we're going to talk about securing your IT environment. And specifically, this is in support of stopping ransomware and cyber attacks, right? This continues on from our previous episode where we talked about the three things that I think like absolutely everybody has to do, that you just absolutely cannot get by with doing or without doing. And what were those?
Patching, password management, and MFA.
Yeah, we throw that
Woo!
out there a lot, right?
I had to go back and think. I was like, what did we talk about?
Well, the good news is we talk about those three a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I've been working with my new co-author of my upcoming book. I don't know if we're public about that yet, so I won't use his name, but I have a co-author for my upcoming book on ransomware. I've been talking to him about that, and we've been talking about a lot of the things that people need to do to secure their environments. And so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is, I don't know if you've ever heard this thing, like we'd get a lot more done, if there weren't so many customers, right? In IT, it'd be so much fewer, how do I put this? There'd be so fewer problems. There'd be fewer problems. Why isn't this coming out in English?
There would be more time to do stuff with people doing dumb stuff. If people didn't do dumb stuff.
I was just trying to say something funny. It's just not coming out right. Anyway, so what would you say is the number one security risk in every environment, every IT environment?
Oh, this is obvious, Curtis.
What's that?
It's the users, people, humans, the humans.
It is the human. It is the human. By the way,
although I do have a question.
Sure.
With ChatGPT and hallucinations, do you think that now becomes an issue?
I'm not prepared to discuss that at this time. No comment. So
I like your users being the problem, because I know in backups, right? If we think about that, right?
Right.
A lot of your restore scenarios are because people did dumb stuff, right?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
you've had the story about someone accidentally deleting a file server.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, as we have made IT systems more resilient, right? You have to realize that when I started IT, we didn't have RAID, right? Yeah. So we had mission critical servers running on individual hard drives, yeah. Right? We didn't really have highly available systems, et cetera. At least not in the open systems world. I think they did in the mainframe side. But so as we've made especially storage systems more resilient, the percentage of time that we have to, that the problem is the user is like 95%.
Yeah.
Right.
With
that's
great
in
power
backups, and
comes
it's definitely
great
the case in security. What's that?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, did you ever think about the fact that there's only 2 industries in the world, of which I'm aware, that refer to their customers as users?
I'm going to say the IT industry and also the drug trade.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, just, something funny there. So why are we talking about users? Because I would say one of the best things that you can do to help secure your environment is to educate your users, your customers, the people inside your environment that are using your, all of your IT systems. And what does that look like?
So there are different things you could do for training, right? You could have mandatory training when they join the company, periodic updates like, hey, here are security policies. And I'm sure everyone has like those little cheesy videos that go on the screen, like with the little cartoon animations being like, hey, here's this phishing email. Please click all the things that rely on phishing and why it's bad, right?
Right.
So you have this sort of training that can happen. You also have the ones which are more testing you. So some software packages have the ability to send out phishing emails to test your users and say, hey, by the way, are you clicking on something? And if you did click on an email, maybe you need some additional training, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about those. Those are two very different things. The first thing I do like, what I think you should be doing is very periodic. Obviously, some new employee training for sure, because you have no idea what they've seen before. And then I do think that it should be something. I like the idea of quarterly. Quarterly, just a little bit, something that's not going to take forever. And you're just trying to bubble up into their minds on a regular basis. You're trying to remind them of the things that they should be looking for. Because when we look at the typical attack vector, it's usually something like phishing or spear phishing or something like that,
Or
that is
clicking
going
on open a
directly
link.
after a user to get them to open a link, to get them to do whatever, right? To get them to do something that opens up that initial door. And so the idea of repeated security training just bubbles that stuff up. And yes, also helps to educate them on the current state of the art in terms of what is happening. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to make that point. Yeah, I think it's important because you don't want to have security training, which is like 3 years old, talking about the issues from 3 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
An example would be, it may not make sense during the pandemic when no one was going into an office to have a security training talking about people tailgating through an office through an access control door. Because people, so why waste people's cycles? Because users aren't going to remember things, right? That's the other problem.
Right.
So how do you make it relevant for what is common and what is current in terms of the attack surfaces?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one that I know that my previous employer used, KnowBe4. I'm sure you're familiar
That's the
with
Kevin
them.
Mitnick one, right?
Yeah. And so basically it's constantly, doing all of that, the security training with little bits and bytes, little videos, little quizzes, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure there are plenty of other companies that are like that are constantly trying to, provide security training for your end users. And by the way, I would say additional security training for people with privileged accounts, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to your quote: too much is given, much is expected, right? Or great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yep.
So then let's talk about this idea of testing those users. When you're going to test your users, there is sort of the punishment, the stick versus the carrot, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big things. And one of the things that I don't remember which one of the previous experts that we had on that talked about this, but what they really liked is they much more appreciated the carrot than the stick. Yeah. What do I mean by that?
Basically, don't shame and punish users who fail a test, but give them additional training, be supportive, make sure that they understand why they sort of failed, and sort of do positive reinforcement, right? Which is kind of, I'm looking at my dog right now who's sleeping right next to me, but literally that's how you train dogs, right? It's positive reinforcement rather than the stick. And
positive reinforcement when they do something right. What would be an example of that they did something right?
So that they identified a phishing email correctly.
Exactly. Right. So you sent them a fake phishing email. They identified it and they did what you trained them to do, which is report it to IT. They should definitely get some brownie points if they do that. Right. And then if they get caught, if you will, this isn't like put them up on a dunce board, announce the list of people that are messing up the world or here's, you've got 3 strikes this month, you're going to be fired. I don't like any of those. Now, we can talk about the extreme person, right? If there is someone who just doesn't seem to be able to get the concept of cybersecurity, you have 2 choices. You either build a wall around them, which is increasingly difficult to do, or you decide to terminate them, right? But the person who makes the occasional mistake should just be reminded, in a pleasant way that, hey, however you want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad if you failed that test, because I was actually just browsing Twitter earlier this morning, and there was a security person who was going through training because they got caught by a phishing attack, right? Or by the phishing training test, right? And so
Right.
it can happen to any of us because some of those are hard, and that's really what the bad guys are looking at as well, right? These aren't going to be obvious that this is a phishing attack, so
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah,
So,
I can remember one that I fell for a couple of years ago, and
that
it
drained your bank
was
account.
no. Look, I got no ill effects happened as a result of it, but it was I think it was spear phishing, because they specifically said your um the employer that I worked for had paid for like Norton or something. They'd paid, not Norton. They had paid for, what's that service that the one that the guy puts his social security number online?
LifeLock?
Yeah, what is it?
LifeLock?
LifeLock. Yeah. Well, they had paid for LifeLock because we had had a breach, so they paid for LifeLock for like a year, and then I got this notice that said your LifeLock thing is expiring. Do you want to, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it came at just the right time, and it was like, and it's quite possibly that the attacker knew that there had been a breach. They had waited the right amount of time, and then they went and just sent an email to everybody. And I fell for it. I went right in there, and um, and I remember at the time I was really not happy with LifeLock's response. Like, I felt I'd done something, and but anyway, yeah, you can
Yeah.
anybody can fall for it.
So,
And so don't feel horrible about it. Yeah.
and the one thing I want to add, I know we're talking about sort of training and testing, but also when a user accidentally gets caught with actual phishing, make it such that it's okay for them to come forward and be proactive, because that's the best thing to do. Is you want them to be like, hey, tell us when something goes wrong so we could start locking down systems and dealing with this, rather than, hey, I'm just going to pretend this never happened and go along on my merry way.
Agreed. And that goes, I mean, you've heard the phrase before that you train people how to treat you. You train your users on how they're going to respond if they actually get, they respond to an actual phishing attack. So if you're if you're a big stick environment, right, and they get beat over the head with a real stick, imagine what they think is going to happen if they actually get hit with a real ransomware. So yeah, this is back to that positive reinforcement. And I'll give you an example of something that was just a little while ago. There was I think we talked about it on the podcast, where the guy said that everyone that on Valentine's Day, that everyone received a notice that they had flowers down at the front desk or something, and they just needed to respond to get the flowers or something. And it was all phishing related. And he said his wife didn't fall for it, so he was, because of, he had trained her, right? But he's like, for a few minutes, everyone in that building felt loved.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
That's an example of the wrong kind of thing to do, for sure. So the next thing, and I think I really want, this is something that I don't think very many people do, but I'd like you to at least consider that, and that's application whitelisting. What is that, and why would that be such a big deal?
So this is basically saying only certain applications are allowed to be installed, are able to run on your devices, in order to sort of lock down the scope and prevent people from going and downloading arbitrary packages which might have issues. While I agree in principle with the purpose and probably locks down a lot of things, I have two concerns with application whitelisting, maybe three. So the first concern is by putting a whitelist, you sort of restrict like a user's ability to get work done. For instance, Curtis, I'm sure if there was a software package that you needed in order to be able to get your work done and you couldn't get access to it because it wasn't part of the whitelist, now there's probably an approval
a downside
process.
of it.
Yeah. There's a giant process in order to get that going. The second thing, and I know we talked about this the other day, is it doesn't necessarily protect you from supply chain attacks. So if someone had compromised that application that you have on the whitelist, it's not going to protect you because it's still on your whitelist. You're still able to run it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the application itself is compromised doesn't help you.
Yeah.
So
and you said I thought you said you had three.
And then the third one is when you're writing code, sometimes you do need access to libraries and other pieces of software to download, install packages, right? I think it would be a big burden and also a big compliance and governance thing. Like, how do you make sure, like, what's the process for adding a software? How long does it take to go through that process in order to add something to the application whitelist to make sure everything's signed off? How long does it stay there as software packages are changing? When do things get dropped? Like, it's so much of a program that sometimes it may be difficult for both small and large organizations to implement something like this.
So those are all valid concerns. I want to counter them. So
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not.
No. Yeah, you did. So what are the three? Remind me the three. It was. So you were worried about the difficulty on the user, right?
Yeah,
you were worried about supply chain hacks, and then sort of the burden on IT developing third-party apps. Yeah. So what I would say is, I agree with all of those, and I think that perhaps, especially with the first one. I think you're focused a little bit too much on people like you and me.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And I'm focusing, at least with this,
on the general users,
on servers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And especially servers, number one, and especially like the laptops for the masses.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't also forget phones.
Well, yeah, okay. I'll agree to that. It's just most environments. That's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other can of worms. Agreed. But what do you think the percentage of the people that have actual company phones these days?
Well, or they're using their phones with access to company resources. It's all the same, right?
Yes, that's a whole other can of worms. But because pushing application whitelisting on somebody else's phone, that's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I am saying is, if you can do it, I think you should do it.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. It's going to be difficult for IT people and like power users, and perhaps you have exceptions. This is what we talk about, like block all outgoing traffic except for, the ones that you need. Restrict as many laptops as you can, except for the ones that you can't. Restrict servers. Really think about that, right? If it's just a server that does one job, perhaps you make Exchange is the only thing that's allowed to run on that box or whatever else it needs. Active Directory, etc. And the regarding your second one, I would say I'm gonna do a but. Okay. Yes, it doesn't stop you from supply chain attacks, but supply chain attacks are really rare, right? I'm not saying they don't happen, but they are really rare. And just because it doesn't stop you from everything doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
And then the third, I would say, this just goes back to the first one. It's like, yes, but again, I think I think there's a lot of companies that don't do their own in-house development, right?
Yeah.
And they're just using, their own. They're using Microsoft Word, etc. Right? They're using 15 applications, and everybody's using the same 15 applications. And you could whitelist those
Oh,
applications and nothing else.
yeah. And I agree, for most users, they probably don't need access beyond those specific apps, like your
Right.
15 or whatever the number is. And then I think also for um, the servers, I think that, like you said, you should probably be going through an IT process anyway to onboard an application, including looking at the resources, making sure you're including backup and DR as part of the deployment process. So I think that is also a good point.
Agreed.
I know you talked about application whitelisting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on extending that to browser whitelisting, like website?
That that's a very similar concept, right? Where you allow. I'll just say this: it doesn't work because all it takes is someone using HTTPS and the right tool to go around your tool, right? All they need is something as simple as hidemyass.com. Have you seen hidemyass.com?
No, I have not.
There's literally a website called hidemyass.com, and you can go there and put the website you actually want to go to, and they'll take you there and encrypt the whole thing so that your security software won't find it. So it's only going to stop like the dumbest people.
Yeah. But hey, if that's common.
Yeah. That is, I think that's something you should discuss as to whether or not you should block, access to. Well, let's just move on to the next thing, which is talking about. So disable different attack vectors, right? So the first thing I do think you should be looking at when you're inventorying your environment and you're looking for things to lock down is you really need to look at service accounts. This really came up when we had Dwayne on here, and he was talking about that, and that freaked me out when he was talking about the backup service account, how that allows you to do whatever you want without auditing at all.
Yeah.
And there are many service accounts. So the first thing I think, or one of the things that you should do as you're inventorying your environment and you're trying to secure your environment, is to go through your environment and look for service accounts. What are they being used for? Do they have it? I'm going to say the most common thing with these is that they have a very basic password. Or they have a default password, or they have no password, and they're being used by something really important. And the result is that it becomes a really easily hackable account.
Yeah, no, and also turning off things that you don't need a service, that particular service account for.
Exactly. And on that end, let's talk about services that typically run that maybe shouldn't. Let's talk about what I like to call the ransomware deployment protocol, otherwise known as RDP.
Yes, RDP, or remote desktop protocol.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the world to change. It's the ransomware deployment protocol. Disable RDP, disable RDP, disable RDP. Right?
Can I correct that?
Sure.
So, or slightly tweak your statement. I think it's disable RDP unless you really need a machine that needs RDP running.
Well, that's the way I am with everything, right?
Yeah.
Disable it wherever you can.
I think the other thing is also disable RDP leaving your network unless you need access outside of your intranet.
Well, I would say that you absolutely cannot allow direct RDP access to the internet. 100%. There's, in my opinion, there is no reason to ever do that. If you need something like that, then you should require VPN. In fact, what I would suggest is that if you're going to do RDP, you put those interfaces on a separate network. And then you must be on that network either physically or via VPN in order to access those hosts. Because you just need to understand, just like we talk a lot about with backups, you need to understand the degree to which your backup server is under attack. You need to understand just how bad RDP is from a ransomware deployment perspective, right?
And And I know we harp on RDP, but the same is true for any other service which you don't need to be running.
SMB, NFS, AFP, FTP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All of these services need to be turned off. And this is why, by the way, this is why Windows got, I think, a big knock for being insecure, mainly because it turned everything on by default,
Yep.
whereas Unix and Linux turned everything off by default.
Yep.
And so just go and look at these services, all of the
Or
services that are running, and ask you, do you absolutely have to
yeah.
to run them?
Or the other thing is just do a port scan on your servers. That'll tell you if this, like, what ports are being listened to on, and you could map those back to figure out, okay, what service is that? And it's all pretty standard, right? I think RDP is 3922.
Right. And I would say, if you, let's go back to RDP for a minute. And this is just remote. If you need remote access, and in today's world, you probably do need remote access. Don't use RDP. Use a service that gives remote access, right? Like ConnectWise, which is a service that is properly securing and probably, properly doing things in a way that doesn't. It's a service where the way ConnectWise works is it reaches out, right? And you've got to first connect to them, and then it will connect to you, right? And so you can add things like MFA and all of that extra protection on. And so if you need remote access, and you need remote access, use a service to do it. Please don't allow something like RDP or SSH or any of that stuff directly accessible via the internet.
Yeah, those are bad.
Yeah.
Very, very bad.
And then also let's talk about, I can't believe I have to say this, but you need to look at some type of malware scanning, right? Some type of antivirus, anti-malware. And this is not just on Windows. This is also on Mac.
Which is surprising
and Linux.
That how many people say, I don't need anything on my Mac. It's like, no, you really do.
Yeah. And the same thing on Linux, right? And the same thing on, like, they're directly targeting VMware and other virtualization solutions. So you need to put that in. And then finally, let's just talk a little bit about proactive. What was the term that he used? He didn't like the term ethical hacking. He didn't like the term. What did he call the red team concept? What did he call it?
I don't remember.
Let's just say this: you need a red team.
Yeah.
Right. What is a red team, Persona?
This is basically a team who works for you, who thinks like the bad guy. So they are there attacking your systems just the same way a bad guy would. But unlike a bad guy, they work for you. So then hopefully once they've identified the issues, you can go fix them.
Yeah. And I really liked, when we had Dwayne on here, I really liked the way he talked about the way they did it, where they work with the blue team. The blue team, of course, is the defensive side. And you need a red team, you need a blue team. You need both of these. And I do believe that you should hire experts to do this. Yeah. I can put links to the 2 episodes that we just played if you missed them, that show you what a red team does, what a blue team does, and why you need a relationship with them now versus, waiting until after attack to call a blue team.
Yeah.
Right. So the basically what they'll do, and this is more than just port scanning. This is more than just a basic penetration test. This is a group. This is a company with a group of people that are actively going to try and attack your company.
Yep.
And
expose any weaknesses.
Which, yeah, absolutely. Which may include, depending on what level of service you're going to buy, which may include physical penetration testing.
Yep.
Which may include things like trying to figure out how to scan your security badges and things like that, right?
Yeah. Or even probably working with third-party vendors who might be connected with you to try to get access to your accounts through those other ways.
Right. So these are other things, when you're going to do some type of security audit, these are things that you might want to take a look at in order to ensure, to further ensure that you're securing your environment.
But
go ahead.
Yeah, while I like the term doing a security audit, I do wonder if many of these things that we are looking at get sort of baked into when an application gets deployed, right? Here are the things that you should be taking into consideration, right? As part of that questionnaire to identify, okay, are they really following the best practices? Because if you get to the point where you're doing a security audit and you found things, that means that it failed up front, right? So it's not a bad idea to do a security audit at the end, right? Or at some point, but
I would say on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But also remember, doing a security audit is time consuming across an organization, right? And so baking it into the process so everyone's thinking about this day in and day out will make it more scalable and achievable.
Yeah, I think the idea is like you've got to start somewhere, right? So you go through you get a list of you get a list of applications, you get a list of things, you train your users, you do all the things that you haven't been doing up to this point, and then we can start talking about things that we should be doing on a regular basis, which is a list of things from a security perspective that you should be looking at when you deploy a new application. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, Prasanna. Well, thanks for good discussion as always.
No, thank you, Curtis. And I'm excited to hear what your secret assistant does next.
Me too. All right, listeners, we love you. You're why we're here. We're trying to turn you into a cybersecurity hero. So be sure to subscribe. And that is a wrap. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.